So we begin this morning's bulletin with news coming in from U.S. viewers. In a stinging rebuke to U.S. President Donald Trump's aggressive trade war, U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that his sweeping unilateral tariffs on imports worldwide violate federal law, derailing a cornerstone of his foreign policy and economic agenda. In a 6-3 verdict, the court held that the tariffs went beyond the scope of the law, and Chief Justice John Roberts authoring the majority opinion. The ruling undercuts a central pillar of Trump's second-term economic agenda. Tariffs, taxes on imported goods, have been central to his strategy to reduce trade deficits, pressure trading partners, and raise federal revenue. Trump has called the verdict a disgrace during a meeting with state governors. Have a look.
What are the Trump administration's next steps? What options do they have?
Yeah, so that's the big question right now. Obviously, this ruling monumental for this second term of President Trump, striking down this major linchpin framework for everything he's been doing economically. Now, we did hear briefly from the president calling this a disgrace, but when you talk about those next steps, this is something from those we've heard from that this, to a certain extent, maybe was expected, this ruling. There was some reading of the tea leaves, if you will, based on the way the arguments went when this was before the Supreme Court last year, and that even hearing from some of the attorneys after that, maybe they knew where this may have been heading to this point today, and that there have potentially been other things the administration has now been looking into. Obviously, that will need to be flushed out as we move forward. Obviously, this just came down a short time ago. We are waiting to hear, obviously, more from the White House on their next steps, because, again, this is such a linchpin to everything that he has been doing.
Michael Yoshida, just stay on with me. I need to go across to Jeffrey Sachs, who's just tuned in. Thank you, Jeffrey Sachs, for speaking with us this evening. Very consequential evening. How do you see this scenario unfold? What does this mean now for countries such as India, who are sitting miles across and are negotiating trade deals with Trump? Give us the overview.
Well, rip up the so-called trade deal. It's there's no point to it anymore. Trump did not have the authority to threaten India. He did not have the authority to impose tariffs on India. He did not have the authority to put penalties on India. All of it was unconstitutional, in violation of the law. Rip it up. There's nothing there.
Zaka.
Professor Sachs, you know, the Supreme Court verdict has taken a very narrow view. There's a particular section of the IEPA which they say the president does not have the power or the authority to impose, but there are other instruments where the president can reimpose these tariffs. Do you think he will do that, or will he just give up on this tariffs, because it's been a signature policy of his in the second term?
Well, I don't think it's a narrow opinion. It's actually quite a bold, clear opinion. It goes back to the American Revolutionary War, which was a war about taxation without representation. It said that the U.S. Constitution therefore put the authority of government revenues, including tariffs, into the hands of the representatives of the people in Article 1 of our Constitution. It's not a narrow reading. It's not a reading about the legislative language. It's a reading about the grab for power by the executive branch on something that does not belong to the executive branch. Well, will Trump try something else? Most likely, but he will also fail. But the man is a wrecking ball, no question. I'm just advising India, as I've been saying for a year, this is baloney. There was never the legality for this. This has been one-person rule in the United States. It's a nonsense. And if he tries something else, it'll be a nonsense too.
All right, so we have CNN News 18 Siddhant Mishra joining us live right now. Siddhant, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. So, Siddhant, it is important to understand what legal authority is the administration using to impose the new 10% tariff after the court ruling?
Well, he had his administration is talking about the other relevant sections, perhaps, which could be invoked to save this entire tariff unleashing by the United States. But what experts are saying, in fact, what we could interpret is that the authority which was drawn by President Trump under IPA perhaps does not stand anymore after the Supreme Court order. So even if U.S. may have signed trade deals with more than 19, 20 countries, whatever the percentage is, to cover that percentage or perhaps to bring it back to the percentage that was decided in the trade deal. Globally, 10% tariff has been announced under Section 221. So this is what we could understand. Now, the problem with Section 221 is that it cannot last beyond 150 days. It also needs Congress's authorization, rather legislation from the Congress. So it's a very, very tricky situation for President Trump. He's walking a tightrope. He may say that I can give license and I can collect license, and I'm the U.S. president. I can collect money, etc., etc. But the fact remains that U.S. Supreme Court has struck down his powers which were invoked under IPA, under emergency power, under the garb of national security, etc. So those powers have now been struck down by U.S. Supreme Court. Now, there are two major debates. The debates are going on two major issues in the United States. One, that whether there's going to be the possibility of the refund of the tariff collected in last few months, which is about $150 billion, or something like that. And the second is that will President Trump be able to stand his ground when it comes to tariffs, because already this is a big setback. And in terms of perception also, which is very important when you run this kind of a global campaign, you need support of people, your court, your executive branch, legislative, etc. So now the support from the court is no more with President Trump, and this would definitely have a political ramification also back home. So whether he will be able to pull it off, or will be able to continue with the same. Well, it looks like that he is not ready to give up. He is finding alternatives. He said there are alternatives available. He can also route it to Congress in days to come. That would take some time, but it can happen. So let's see what happens. But it is surely times of unpredictability. The countries got the deal done, and now U.S. Supreme Court is striking it down. Trump again imposing 10% tariff. Unpredictability for the market and for the whole world.
Right, Siddhant, continue to stay with us as we have more news pouring in from the United States.